Welcome to another Turn 'em Sideways channel video. We are going to be doing the set review of Spiritforged, and I've got Prismaticism here to walk me through. Next up, we've got all of the Legends signature spells, and we're going to cover the battlefields in this one. So let's go ahead and start with Rumble Mechanized Menace. He is Fury Mind. Your mechs have shield. Originally, I was pretty low on this, but the mechs have looked pretty like on rate. And so because of that, he just like makes all his mechs above rate, and red-blue is pretty good. I'm still just going to give Rumble a 3. I don't think his ability overall is like going to be insanely impactful. I do worry about another Master Yi situation, I guess, but +2 is significantly more than the +1. So yeah, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's just a 3. It's just a 3, right? Surely.
I'll give him a 4. I think he probably is the next Master Yi, and then he's also going to have the upside of being able to stack battlefields. The mechs do look very good, just as standalone units before they're getting shield. It's going to be very strong overall.
Fair enough. Danger Zone signature spell for Rumble. Reaction, give your mechs +1 this turn. Repeat. So 1 energy, 1 power to do +2. It's interesting. It's like combat trick for his mechs, but very power intensive. And we've seen this with like the Victor signature that was like -1 to all opponents and +1 to all of his stuff at a location. And that is like been considered pretty unplayable garbage. So I'm actually going to say that Danger Zone is a 1. I'm going to say it's going to go the way that Victor's signature spell went, and it's not going to be playable.
It does remind me of Victor's signature spell, but you can play it outside of combat and it does affect the entire board, so it can help you attack into multiple battlefields. And it can also help you survive spell effects. I don't think Rumble's going to play 3 of this. Maybe he won't even play 2. But I think 1 copy in the deck is probably going to stay. I'll give it a 3.
Fair enough.
Just as a 1-of, it's going to be a card that is useful.
All right, going over to Lucian. Your equipment each give assault, so +1 while equipped. I'm going to be honest. When out of all of the legend effects, when I read this one, I read it as just baseline legend effect. I think it's the worst one. I'm going to say this is a 1. I think I'm not impressed with this legend effect overall. I do think the stats are good, attacking good, whatever. I'm going to say it's a 1, but I don't think Lucian as a legend necessarily is going to be like a bad legend. I just think that his legend effect is not super impressive to me.
Yeah, I'll give him a 1 as well. I don't think he gets enough Weapon Master or even enough good equipment to make him good at attacking. Yeah, it's a weak effect overall.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side, Relentless Pursuit, his signature spell, move a friendly unit you may attach an equipment to it with the same controller to it this turn. That unit has when I conquer, you may move me to my base at action speed. This to me is a 5. This is very strong. This is an incredible spell, in my opinion. I think this is really, really great. Can be used on your opponent's turn to go in and take one of their battlefields from them. Do some really tricky stuff like Red the Wind. Yeah, I think it's actually really great.
Oh yeah, this is a 5. It's Ride the Wind outside of the purple color. It's going to be tough to play around some of the time for the opponent, and then there are going to be some combos as well that you can pull off with Trinity Force and Skyfall to be able to potentially score 4 points in a turn.
Going up next is Draven Glorious Executioner. When you win a combat, draw 1. I think just on legend ability alone, this to me is a 5. I think this like not once per turn conditional effect is like crazy. I think the amount of card advantage you're going to be able to get out of this legend ability is absurd.
Yeah, I'll give him a 5 as well. He just gives you a payback. You use purple spells or red spells to win combat, and you immediately get your cards back. So you can play a bunch of cheap effects, get combat wins, and then never run out of resources.
Then his signature spell, Spinning Axe, quick draw, equip as +3, and then as temporary if it's unattached, kill at the start of its controller's beginning phase before scoring. This is Longsword but better, and I gave Longsword, I believe, a 4. And if this is better than Longsword, and Longsword was a 4, it is nearly a 5 here. This is a very powerful effect. It's really hard to play around it, just 2 energy. I'm going to give it a 5.
I think it's probably similar to Longsword, to be honest. Maybe a little bit better. If you play it as a trick and your opponent also has mana open, it does feel very risky. Or if they win that combat and it falls off immediately, then you could just lose it without any value. But at the same time, it is +3, so it's as much impact as a cleave, and then you have the +3 left over for the unit to the opponent to deal with on the next turn. The one issue, longsword, you get to keep it afterwards after the unit dies, whereas this, if you don't have some very specific ways to re-equip it, if your unit dies on the opponent's turn, then this will just disappear. It is more spell-like than equipment-like.
Fair enough. All right. Up next, we've got Rek'Sai Void Burrower. When you conquer, you may exhaust me to reveal the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may play one, then recycle the rest. I also think this ability is crazy. It's a lot of card advantage, but unlike just drawing a card, you do have to play it right away, so it doesn't give you as much flexibility. It is card advantage, which is cool, but that lack of flexibility definitely hurts it. I'm going to say it's a 4. I actually still think this effect is quite strong.
Yeah, I think I'll put it as 4 as well. This kind of effect, you're forced to build your deck around a lot of 2-cost units, so you're basically forced to be a really, really aggressive and low-cost deck.
And then up next is Void Rush for Rek'Sai, the signature spell. Reveal the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may play one of them, reducing its cost by 2. Draw any you did not play this way. The more I play this card, the more amazing I think it is, because it also draws a card. Now, once again, you lose the flexibility, because it will have to be one of the 2 cards that you're seeing off the top that you get to play. But it is essentially a 0-cost draw 2, realistically, at the end of the day, because you're going to play one of those cards for that reduced cost, and it is just a power cost to do so. So for that, I'm going to give Void Rush a 5. It has been an incredibly impressive card to me.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5 as well. It's sort of like Guerrilla Warfare, where you get the draw 2, pseudo draw 2 effect and the discount. But this you can play basically as early as turn 2 if you really wanted to. It's going to very reliably be able to get you something to play.
Next up is Orrn, Fire Below the Mountain. Reaction, add a power, use only to play gear or use gear abilities. So this is Gear Kaisa is what we got for Orrn. If we know anything about Kaisa's ability, this is very likely a 5.
Oh yeah, this is a 5. You get to equip for free every turn. There are a lot of gear that's worth playing with power cost built into the cost. And then you could even play seals and then just get seals started as early as turn 1.
He's got 3 signatures for him. He's got the Forge Fire Cape, which is when I attack or defend, deal 2 to all enemy units here, and it's a +3. Very expensive starter costs for these signatures, 4 energy, 2 power. You get to reduce some of that with the Orrn ability. But this one, the attack or defend, deal 2 to all enemies here, is kind of middling. There are some matchups where this will be incredibly strong, and then sometimes this is just like, it is like Anivia's effect, where it lets you trade more favorably into things because it's some extra damage. So I don't hate it, and you're in blue, so you might have some ways to even reduce might and get some kills in that way. So Forge Fire, I'll probably give a 3. I think this one's pretty playable, but not incredible.
I think I'll give it a 4. +3 might on any equipment, just by itself, like a BF sword, is already great. And then this extra damage, some matchups is going to be completely broken, and opponent won't be able to win the game against. But even in the worst case scenario, where it's just dealing 2, that is making you trade when you would have just died otherwise, which is very strong.
Up next is the Rabadon's Death Cap. This is your spells and abilities deal 3 bonus damage while this is attached, and then +3. So again, it's got that BF sword quality you're talking about. What's funny for me is, like, if you can equip Rabadon's and Forge Fire, that does get crazy, but that almost feels like, you know, some magical Christmas Land 2-card combo setups as well. But also, this is a color combo that can play things like Bellows Breath, so I'm pretty interested in how this actually ends up working out. Though it's very conditional and requires combos, so I'm going to still put it as a 3. I think it's similar to Forge Fire Cape for myself.
I think I'll put this one at a 2. It needs very specific combos to ever be more than a BF sword, and I think that those are pretty rare, not very common in the blue and green colors. If you could have red with this, that'd be amazing.
That'd be crazy. Going up next, we've got Shirelia's Requiem. Your units here have ganking, and this is only +2. But I mentioned I thought the ganking equipment was really crazy already, and this is all your units there are going to have ganking. And when you play this, ready your units is another very impactful part of this one. I'm going to give this a 5. I think Shirelia's is probably the best one of the 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is a 5. It's a the Sivir signature spell on the hunt, but then you also get the value afterwards in the ganking. Especially if you're building around Blue Orrn, then this enables him completely.
Up next is going to be Jax, Grandmaster at Arms. 1 to attach a detached equipment you control to a unit you control, or just tap him to attach an attached equipment, so you can move your equipment around pretty easy. I think Jack's ability is nice. It is another resource cheating ability, but it is only as strong as the equipment that he can have. So I'll put it as a 4 in a vacuum, but I don't think in the set he has everything he needs just yet.
Yeah, I guess I could see him being a 4 off of potential. It's more like a 3 right now. It is like the Teemo effect where you get to pay energy instead of power costs. It's a lot worse when you're just coming from Orrn, where Orrn gets to just pay them for free, which is so much stronger.
Jack's signature spell is going to be Counter Strike, which is choose a unit. The next time that unit would be dealt damage this turn, prevent it, draw 1 as a reaction. So this is not only spells, but also combat damage that it can prevent, which is absurd, I think. I think this is a 5. This is the reason to play Jax, is actually this card, right? If Jax is good, it's going to be off the back of Counter Strike, I think.
Yeah, I think this card, it just makes it very difficult for a lot of decks to stop you from holding. So I think it's a 5. They could send in as much as they want. If they don't have a spell to break this shield effectively, then they are not going to get rid of your unit. And this in combination with something like Trinity Force holding.
All right, up next is a Blade Dancer. When you choose a friendly unit, you may exhaust me and pay 1 to ready it. When you conquer, you may pay an energy to ready me, 1 power to ready it. It's expensive. It's so expensive, but I think it's a 5 for me. I think readying units and mobility are just so strong in Riftbound, and so I do think that this just has to be very good.
Yeah, I think that this is a 5 as well. It does force you to be pretty aggressive with your resources overall in order to get value out of it. But yeah, readying units and being able to do it multiple times in a turn potentially is amazing. It's just going to be a lot more efficient than Yasuo is.
And Defiant Dance is a 1 energy, 1 power reaction. Give a unit +2 this turn and another unit -2 this turn. This is also just incredibly overstated, and so I will just be giving this a 5 easily. Such an efficient combat trick, and there's ways to cheat this cost in Aurelia already.
Yeah, this is a 5. This is on guard, but double the effect effectively. And then, yeah, Purple Aurelia can either play this for 0 energy while you're tapped out completely, or not pay the power cost.
Absolutely crazy card. Up next is Azir, Emperor of the Sands. Your Sand Soldiers have Weapon Master, and then you can pay 1 to tap Azir to play a 2 Might Sand Soldier token to your base, and you can only use that if you have played an equipment this turn. What I will say is there is a massive deck building cost in this, because you have to have the equipment out to even be able to activate this. So you have to play a certain amount of equipment to even get any value, and that does hurt this because there is like that big deck building cost. But Sand Soldiers having Weapon Master is really powerful. I'm going to give it a 4 to Azir. I think it's not quite a 5, but it's quite a strong effect.
I think I'll give him a 5. The fact that you can just get this turn 1 2 Might unit with the equipment attached to it means that your starts are going to be very fast. And then all of your Sand Soldiers getting Weapon Master, including the ones that you make through other card effects, is really useful. And then, yeah, just you get cheap units repeatedly, and then you get to equip unit, cheating the cost.
Good. Up next is the signature for Azir, which is Arise. It's a 6 cost. Play a 2 Might Sand Soldier token for each equipment you control, then ready 2 of them. This deck already requires you to play a ton of equips. This is just rewarding you for doing what you already want to do, and the payoff is pretty massive. The amount of might you create when you do this is usually like an obscene amount. So I'm going to give it a 5. I think it does some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, I'll give this a 5 as well. It's accelerate units, and then you could hold with this or just attack with it. And with the equipment you equip to it, you're accelerating 8 plus might. While getting other units out, you could have 3 equipment in total, and it's still amazing.
All right, up next is Ezreal, Prodigal Explorer. As tap reaction, draw 1. Use only if you've chosen enemy units and or gear twice with the spells this turn or unit abilities. I think, drawing cards is good. This is very easy to activate. It's way easier to activate than I expected it to be initially for Ezreal, and so you can constantly just churn through the deck. I think I will give it a 4 because this condition I think is slightly harder to have happen than the Draven one, and Draven's is not once per turn. So I'm gonna say it's a bit worse than Draven, so it's a 4 instead of a 5, but it's still a very good ability.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4 as well. It would be really difficult to trigger this, but with repeat, it does mean that you can trigger it with only a single card played for a pretty low cost, and then it rewards you for playing those low cost spells by refilling your hand to keep playing them.
Up next is Arcane Shift. This is an easy 5 for me. Banish a friendly unit. Owner plays it, ignoring the cost. Deal 3 to an enemy unit at a battlefield, and then banish this. This is like, it's crazy. It's action speed. So you can like replay your Watcher by banishing this, and then Watcher accelerate. And then also, if only a single unit is defending a battlefield, you can still banish it and then re-put it there because of the way that the cleanups work. You still control the battlefield, so you can replay it in the same battlefield that was already defending, which I think is incredibly good. And there's plenty of good on-play effects in purple and blue. This is a great card.
Yeah, I think it's 5 as well. I think any card where they have to say that it banishes itself after it gets played probably has to be a 5.
Yeah, you gotta start looking at that card like, why do they make it so I can't recur this card? Like, if you could fizz this card, Ezreal is just like the best deck in the game, probably. All right, up next is Renata Glask, Chem Baroness. When you or an ally hold, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. While your score is within 3 points of the victory, your gold add an additional energy. I was way more impressed with this effect than I initially thought. I thought this was going to be like way underwhelming, but I think there's enough ways to make gold that it becomes a lot better. And instead of being something like a 2 or a 3, I actually am going to put it at a 4. I think that that end game can get really scary.
Yeah, originally when I saw her, I thought she was a 1. I thought this was like a meme multiplayer thing. You're not going to hold, especially in yellow blue. You're not going to hold. But the second part of the ability is very powerful. Like, I'll say that she's a 3. I don't think that this is the part that really makes her work as a deck, but it is the late game value out of the gold where you really get to finish the game with it.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead to the signature, which is Hostile Takeover. This is a 5 cost with 2 power that can be hidden. And it says take control of an enemy unit at a battlefield. Ready it. You start a combat if other enemies are there. Otherwise, you just conquer. Lose control of that unit and recall it at end of turn. You send it to the base. Which is, yeah, I mean, this card is unhinged. It is crazy. This sets up so many ways to win end games that are just like too ridiculous. So I think it has to be a 5. I love this card though. It's so cool.
Yeah, this is a 5 for me as well. The design is really interesting where it's a hidden card, but it effectively has 2 different modes depending on whether you hit it or played it from your hand. From your hand, you can just take a single unit of the battlefield and just conquer it, scoring a point. Whereas if it's hidden, it has a lot higher risk associated with it, attached to the much lower cost you pay. And then if you steal an opponent's unit, then it'll either add to the combat on your side and potentially get killed, or if it was by itself, then it'll just sit on your side until the end of the turn. And there's also taking enemy units on your own turn gives you a chance to get them killed in a lot of different ways.
Call the Weak is such a cool one. There's some there's some great options. All right, next up is Sivir, Battle Mistress. She is going to be when you recycle a rune, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. When 1 or more enemy units die, ready me. So this is just a way to kind of refund your power costs and generate a bunch of gold. I think this part of her ability is not the best part of Sivir. I think it's fine. It helps mitigate some stuff, but I'm going to put her at a 2. I don't think it's incredibly powerful, but it is okay to try and allow you to play more power costed stuff.
Yeah, I'll put her at a 3. It is useful. One thing I think people are going to get baited by a lot is to recycle runes early, just for additional card draw, something like that, playing something like Called Shot. I think you have to be very careful and make sure that when you're recycling the first rune, especially early on, it's for some kind of a tempo play.
All right, and then her signature ability is going to be the On the Hunt. Ready your units. It is 1 energy, 2 power. I think this is strong. I don't think this is like you put 3 copies in your deck. I think this is like you're playing a purple deck, which can have a lot of card draw and card selection, which makes this a really strong one of in my mind. But I'm gonna just put it as a 3. It's not crazy, but it is good, and I would pretty much always put 1 in my Sivir deck.
Yeah, I agree putting it at a 3. It is comparable to Confront in a lot of situations. It's only going to be better if you have units that are already in play, which does limit it. It probably is only a 1 of, but for finishing the game for only 1 energy, you don't care about the power cost at the end, it's going to be pretty good.
Next, we've got Fiora, Grand Duelist. When one of your units becomes mighty, you may exhaust me to channel 1 rune exhausted. I've been really impressed with this ability. I actually thought this was going to be really underwhelming, but the ability to play kind of higher power cost stuff and actually refund the rune right away, unlike Sivir where it's like a gold, this actually just kind of re-ramps the rune so you didn't actually lose out. I think it's a 4. I actually think it's quite good.
Yeah, I agree putting it at a 4. It is interesting deck building restrictions where you don't want to play units that are already mighty.
Right.
But then the payoff is for it is quite large, where you're kind of the opposite of set, where you're paying a lot of rune costs and then getting them back, and then staying at a pretty stable level.
Next is her signature, which is Riposte. This is a counterspell in orange, yellow, and it is a amazing counterspell at that. It is a counterspell that basically cannot be counterspelled other than by itself for like Windwall. Like, yeah, there's like hard bar. There's some ways that can do it, but it's like it can't be defied. It can't be beat by the like not so fast, which is really, really good. And then it also gives might increase to your unit based on the spell's energy that you do counter. And I think just even having access to a counterspell in these colors, especially when she has a lot of extra runes a lot of the time, is insane. I'm going to give it a 5. I actually think it's crazy to have a counterspell like this. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 5 as well. And like Windwall is a bit too expensive is the issue, 3 runes, but 2 rune cost, and then it's even better than Windwall. Gives you so much control over the game, having these kinds of counters available. And then you're going to trigger your Fiora if you didn't do that already this turn cycle, so you're going to get the rune back sometimes.
Yep. And it's colors that normally don't get access to counterspells. I mean, it's phenomenal. All right. But that's it for the legends and signature spells. We're going to jump right on in to the battlefields. We're going to remove the star system. Battlefields are really tough to just give like a star quality to. More Pris and I are just going to talk about where we think that each battlefield could potentially work. Emperor's Dais, this is when you control, when you conquer here, you can pay 1, return a unit you control here to its hand, and then play a Sand Soldier. There's theory that maybe for Azir you can Weapon Master better, but I think that generally you're not playing that many units, so I actually don't even like this in Azir. I think this needs to be a deck that wants to have a lot of cheap on-play effects, where you want to protect the unit that you just sent in and replay it on a future turn, and instead just getting a Sand Soldier there is fine. It's not actually doing much. Not one where I expect to see much of Emperor's Dais.
Yeah, I don't see any combos for it currently. I mean, maybe at some point in the future, if there's a 2-cost unit that can draw a card or do something else really impactful right when it comes into play, then it could be strong. But as it is, you're going to return a unit, but you paid a cost, and then that energy paid into the units, and like you're leaving the battlefield empty and denying your opponent the kills.
Right, up next is Forge of the Fluffed. When you control this battlefield, friendly legends have exhaust, attach, and equipment you control to a unit you control. Basically, you get like free Jack's ability as your legend whenever you control this. So basically 2 conditions need to be met for this to be good for your deck. You are playing equipment, and your legend does not need to tap for another ability. And then Forge is really good.
Yeah, one other thing to note is it does fully pay for the equip cost, so it's not just like Orrn generating a resource. So you do get to equip the higher equip cost cards for free like this.
Can be really nice. Next up is Forgotten Monument. Players can't score here until their 3rd turn. This was like such a big misconception when it came out. It's like, oh, clearly this is good for like control decks, Aurora decks. And then I think a lot of us kind of collectively realized that like turn 3 is usually when you start scoring the 2nd battlefield anyway. So it's actually not really buying you that much space. There's some niche circumstances where it stops like sneaky deckhand, but this card might just not be super playable overall. We'll see. I could be wrong, but maybe slow decks actually do want it if the meta is fast enough that they're accelerating onto the 2nd point a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to be a deck that's never going to score at all, because if you go 2nd, your opponent scores the other battlefield first, and then you're stuck going here and not scoring points, then it's just game losing immediately. And then yeah, unless they're accelerating and double scoring on their 2nd turn, then they're not going to score this until their 3rd.
All right, so up next is Hall of Legends. When you conquer here, you may pay 1 to ready your legend. Yeah, this is just kind of self-explanatory. Any legend that taps that you may want to do multiple times in a turn, we would consider this. I think like Azir is maybe one where you could consider Hall of Legends, where you play 1 equip and then you're possibly able to play out multiple Sand Soldiers on that turn, but that is pretty expensive to make happen and it requires a conquer. I think it's too expensive for Rek'Sai personally, but yeah, that is what you're going to be looking for with Hall of Legends.
Yeah, it's not a crazy high impact, but it is nice where it is kind of one-sided for a lot of legends, where a lot of opponents are not going to be able to get any value out of it, even if the value you get is not going to be too high.
Up next, we've got Mirai Spire. What I like about this one is it can be one-sided. If you are a deck that plays a lot of repeat costs, then you're going to get reduced costs on those repeat, whereas like some decks are going to have either 0 repeat cards or maybe only like 1. And so this can be really powerful if your deck has really any amount of repeat in it. Depending on what the meta looks like, this can be one-sided for you often. Good neutral battlefield.
Yeah, and you get the potential to, with purple Ezreal, play your repeat cards without paying any additional costs. Be very strong.
Up next, we have Minefield. When you conquer here, put the top 2 cards of your main deck into your trash. Great for any kind of reanimator type deck, or if you're like a Rasa focused list, or even can be good just in purple if you're playing like Fizz, because it can make sure that there's ammo in the trash already for him earlier on in the game. Or there was that like Last Rites gear that can pull stuff from the trash. So anything that's interacting with your trash could actually really like Minefield.
Yeah, maybe a mill deck in the future too.
Yeah. It's very likely a one-sided effect for you too, which makes it really nice. I'd rate it pretty highly. Ornn's Forge, while you control this battlefield, the first friendly non-token gear played each turn costs 1 energy less. If you're a gear deck, this is just clearly a very strong thing to be playing because you'll likely get way better effect out of it than your opponent.
Yeah, you can do some pretty unfair things when going first with this. Like in Azir, you could play a BF sword on turn 2 and then still make the Sand Soldier to equip it too. It's going to be very snowbally.
All right, Power Nexus. When you hold here, you may pay 4 power to score 1 point. This one confuses me. It's like a finisher. It's like you get an additional point. This is, you want to use this to win the game, right? You want to pay 4 energy and because you're 4 power because you won't care about the power anymore. You just win the game. But you have to be a deck that can do that fast enough that your opponent can't use this to win the game before you. I think it's really risky. And honestly, it might need to be a more aggressive deck that has some like good hold things that they can try and finish the game with instead of an actual control deck. I think a control deck's going to struggle to make sure they can always keep their opponent off this point.
Yeah, I think specifically with Time Warp is going to be the best combo for it. Yeah. Where you're on 4 points, conquer this, Time Warp, hold to 6, pay this to 7, and then conquer the other one. But that's pretty narrow.
Yep. We'll see if that can end up being good enough. As we go to Ravenbloom Conservatory, when you defend here, reveal the top card of your main deck. If it's a spell, put it in your hand. Otherwise, recycle it. Amazing for any spell-heavy deck, realistically. This is just a battlefield that sometimes says whenever you defend here, you draw a card. Especially purple, this is not once per turn. So if your opponent like attacks in and you fight or flight something, like you might draw and then they try and attack it again and you could draw again. I think this is a really strong battlefield for any spell-heavy deck. And maybe it's it can often be you're just like you're going first because you just get on here immediately and then you can defend. But also it's fine neutrally if you are more spell heavy than a lot of the rest of the meta.
Yeah, the one thing to note is that it reveals the cards. Your opponent will know whatever you got off of it. Yeah, makes it a little bit worse.
That is true. Going on to the next one, we have Rockfall Path. Units can't be played here. This is pretty nice for trying to prevent your opponent from looking for really big holds. If you are like a double conquer every turn deck, Rockfall Path is definitely something that can work out for you to prevent your opponent from being able to conquer with something smaller and then stack up and hold. Probably meta dependent.
Yeah, it does also stop Deadbloom Predator, which pretty niche, but I don't know if you're going to make one of your 3 battlefields dedicated to stopping one card.
Yeah, probably not. Up next is Seat of Power. I think this one is pretty interesting. It says when you conquer here, draw 1 for each other battlefield you or your allies control. I actually really like this for double conquer decks that need extra card draw. Because when every turn you're trying to conquer both battlefields, you just conquer the other one first, and then when you go to conquer Seat of Power, you control another battlefield and you can draw. The downside is generally double conquer decks are going to allow their opponents are going to get the same kind of thing, and you just want to be ahead on point tempo. So you also have to be a deck that you think is better with the extra cards than your opponent is. So more lower to the ground stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be a decent amount of counterplay to this, where your opponent, as long as they hold one battlefield, they can deny you the draw. But it is an unconditional card draw battlefield compared to something like Dreaming Tree.
Next up, Sunken Temple, another conditional card draw. When you conquer here with 1 or more mighty units, you may pay 1 to draw 1. I think Fiora should play this battlefield. And I think there's probably some other decks that also can get good value out of this, but I think this is definitely it feels like Fiora's specific, really nice battlefield.
Yeah, I think most decks are going to be able to play mighty units, so it is going to be pretty symmetrical overall. But the fact that it's to pay the cost to draw the card does mean that it's not quite as favorable for first player compared to something like Grove of the Godwillow.
Up next is the Paper Tree. When you hold here, each player channels 1 rune exhausted. So for this, I think this just has to be any deck that needs extra runes but doesn't care that the opponent has the extra runes, or is like a slower deck. So when, for instance, if you were playing like an Aurora deck and your opponent is trying to conquer both battlefields and then they have to hold for a turn, you can ramp a rune off of Paper Tree from that, which could be pretty nice for you, even though you're still giving a rune to your opponent. I'm not convinced this card is particularly great, but there's some decent use cases when you are a slower deck and you're letting your opponents conquer early.
Yeah, I think the effect isn't so strong that you stop the opponent from scoring the points and going to this battlefield, but it is, you do get a payoff for it, for just giving the opponent control in the early game.
All right, up next is Treasure Hoard. When you conquer here, you may pay 1 to play a gold geared token exhausted. I think this is great for any deck that can abuse the power costs of gold a little bit more, helps them continue to be ramped up. You're basically paying an energy for a power when you conquer, which is like for banking a power, which I think is quite strong. It is going to be very symmetrical. I think most decks can make use of this, but it is relatively neutral if you want something that, especially for like Renata, where you can get more value out of the gold.
Yeah, if you have gear-specific synergies, like Drop Border or Blue Orrn, then this does get a little bit better for you than it would for your opponent.
Next is Veiled Temple. When you conquer here, you may ready a friendly gear. If it is an equipment, you may detach it. This is some like cute effects with like hook to be able to double hook, or even like if you are playing that Vanguard Armory, you can make 3 recruits and then conquer this and then make 3 more recruits, which is pretty crazy. But that's also high roll on top of kind of an already somewhat high roll combo. I think Veiled Temple definitely has a place because it will likely be one-sided often. If you are a deck that makes good use of Veiled Temple, your opponent probably is not on something that's going to make huge, use out of this. So I think it can be pretty solid for if you have some one-sided gear effects.
Yeah, it'll probably be better in the future when there's more gear with activated abilities, or even equipment that want to be detached, because right now there's not much reason to detach them.
All right, well, that is the last battlefield that was released. That is all of the cards of Spiritforged. Thanks so much, Priz, for joining us on this review. Prismat, where can the people find you if they want to learn more about your Riftbound journey?
They can find me on twitch.tv/Prismat. I stream mostly online tournaments. Going to be doing some set 2-3 crafting in the future. And then they can also find me on metafy.gg/@prismaticism. I published a Teemo guide recently. You can go check that out. And then I also offer coaching there.
So thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe and let us know what you think about these legends, about the battlefields, what cool situations you have for it in the comments down below. Or let us know if you just disagree with everything and you hate us. Actually, don't. That's mean. Please don't. We like nice comments here. Anyways, thank you so much, Priz, for joining me on this journey.